Hi everyone. Yeah, let's control with an example of using if-else statement. If-else statement, as I mentioned earlier, it consists of two blocks: if block and the else block. The if block gets executed when when the condition is true, when we given condition is true, and else block gets executed if the condition is false. Let's take a small example to execute it. Let's start writing and putting our class. I'm going to put this in under comments. So I want to write a class to test the if else block. So let me give me a name. I'm going to give it as test control and save it. I'm going to give the same name as the class name. I'm going to save it as a Java file. So I have the Java class ready. Inside the class, I have to put the main method, public static void main method, and it takes a string argument, string array argument. String else argument, and we have, let's check for a condition. Let's create a starting block. This is the ending block. Let's create a variable. uh, let's create an integer variable marks, and I'm going to assign it to 0. I'm going to assign it to 0. Okay, I'm going to use the scanner class provided in Java to get the marks from the user. And scanner takes a parameter, that is system.in, to for to print in the console. So once I have this here, and I have to import the scanner class java.util.scanner. Of course, it's in the uppercase letter. So I have imported the scanner, and once I have the scanner class ready, now I'm going to write my system out statement to get the marks from the user. System dot enter the marks. I'm going to capture the marks, so I'm going to use scanner dot next integer function, which captures the user marks from the console. I'm going to store it in our variable marks, and I have the marks. If then I'm going to check if marks is mark is greater than 45. I'm going to say system system I'm going to say you have you have passed the examination, else I'm going to say if it is else it's going to be lesser than that. I'll say greater than equal to 45. Okay, I'm going to say pass the examination if you have failed the examination. So this is a simple block where we can execute the if else block. Okay, so let me save it, and I'm going to compile the Java. Okay, so we have no compilation errors. So let's see. Okay, so ls dot. Okay, I have the class. Now I'm going to run it. Java dot slash. Could not find a main method class test control. Let's see, public static void main string args is there. It says it comes with an error saying that the main class is not found. This comes in a case when there is not proper statement for public static void, but we do have a public static void main for the class. Let me run from here. Okay, so now it has accepted it. Now I'm going to enter the marks 45 and say you have passed the examination. So I'm going to run again, and I'm going to say marks is 25, and it says you have failed the examination. So that's a simple example of how a if else block behaves, and it's simple, straightforward. You put the you have two blocks where you check the condition, and the condition is true, it executes the statement, and if it is false, then it comes out of the statement. Okay, so now let's include the other control statements like if block or for block. I'm sorry, I'm going to use the we'll be using the while block. So let's say we want to have I'm going to store five marks. So we have to get 5 marks from the student. So let's say we'll store that in integer array marks. So in that case, I'll say new of integer array for 5 subjects. Okay, so now it's going to get 5 marks from the user. So I can use for block also, but here I'll use the while block. I'm going to use the while block, and I'm going to check the condition. I'm going to check the condition for the while block. In that case, the marks will be I'm going to check marks dot length. So that gives the length of the array. If the marks dot length of the array is marks of the length is lesser than 5, I'll check the index. That will be the more appropriate. I'll check the index. So initialize. Let me initialize the index. I'll create an integer variable index. I'll initialize with 0, and I'll say if index is lesser than marks dot length, I'm going to get the marks from the user. I can move this statement outside. And inside the loop, I'll check for the index. If index is lesser than marks dot length. For example, the marks dot maximum length is 5. So the index gets 0, 1, 2, and the index gets from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so there are 5 elements now. So if it should be lesser than the length. So I'll be putting the appropriate index for the array. So I'll put the index to capture the value into the array. The user enters the value and goes to the appropriate index, and I'm going to increment the index. So once I increment the index, it's going to go to the next value. It's going to go to the next index, and in an array, you can in an array here we have 5 elements in the array, and each one goes from the index 0 through 4. Once the value is getting stored, then again you have to loop through it to see if each certificate, each subject, it is a pass mark or it is failed mark. So again we'll go through a loop. Again I will go through a loop while again I can use the same condition and see so this is the if block, this is the else block, this is the while block. While block is there, then this comes the main block, and this is the main block, and this is the class block. Okay, so again in the while block, I have to increment the index. Again, the index has to be, I'll initialize the index to 0 again, and I will increment the index each time I'm going to the okay, and even before printing the index, and print whether they have passed that particular subject or not. Okay, let me compile this now. Okay, so I have to check marks of with the index. That should do. Let me compile it again. There it goes. Works good. And I can run it from here right here itself. Run it. Enter the marks. So I'm going to enter 35, 45, 67, 78, 97. Okay, so 0 you have failed the examination, subject 1 you have passed the examination, subject 2 you have passed, and subject 3 is passed, subject 4 is passed. So here you see how the loop goes through and each statement is executed, and you got an idea how the while loop behaves, while and if else behaves. The same thing we can give it in a do statement. In a do while statement we can simply the same thing works also the same thing. So let's remove this control. I put the checking condition at the end, and I will say start with a do. So it gets executed 0 and it gets incremented, and it will check index is lesser than marks dot length, and this should also work perfectly well. Let's see, let's swap this and make sure we have the do while statement works together. Okay, so okay, so it should end with the semicolon. Perfect. Then I'm going to run it. I'm going to do it from here. Enter the marks. I'm going to say 45, 35, 67, 89, 67 again. So again it works the same way. First one you have the 35, you failed the examination, 2 you passed, then 3 is you pass the examination, 4 you pass the examination. So this works perfectly fine. We can do this in the same for loop also. Let's see how we can do this in the for loop. For index index you already declared. For index is lesser than marks dot length, and I'm going to increment it here. Again I can increment it here. So this the for block, whatever the for block starts here and ends here, and you have the initialization the first segment. The second segment is checked for the particular condition to whether continue for the for loop or come out of the for loop, and third is an incremental the change. So here we are incrementing it. It can be anything. You can increment, decrement. It's basically a changing the value or changing the conditions. Check. So I have implemented here. Let's compile this. Okay, it says the index is. I think I should initialize. Okay, it's accepted it, and I'm going to run it. The marks 45, 67, 78, 56, 78. So now the first one has failed, and rest of the thing is you have cleared the rest of the examinations. So the for loop also the works in the same way. Here I can include the index also, so that we will know which subject we are in, which subject we are entering the marks. And again I am passing the subject here, subject, and I will also put the marks also here. So I will include the marks. So we can see that in the output. Save it. I will run it. Yeah, I have to compile it. Then I am going to run it. Enter the marks for the first subject: 25, 67, 78, 69, 95. Okay, so 0, the first 35 marks is failed, and rest of it is passed. So that's how we have covered the control statements, where we have seen the if else block, the do block, while block, do while block, and the for loop. We have one more thing pending, that is a switch statement. We will see that in a separate class. We can write the separate class here. We can yes, we can do that in a separate class.